I work the front desk at a boutique hotel in Copenhagen, and last Thursday around 3 p.m., an American couple in their early 60s walked up to me. The husband leaned over the counter, smiled really wide, and said, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" in this super cheerful voice. He patted the marble countertop twice. "We need someone to carry our bags up." "Where's the bellhop?" I told him we don't have a bellhop, but I could help them with directions to the elevator. His smile dropped. "No bellhop? What kind of hotel is this?" His wife touched his arm, but he kept going. "In America, a hotel like this would have 3 people helping us by now. This is terrible customer service. Here's the thing. In Denmark, we don't do that hovering, super attentive service style. It's not rude to us. It's respectful. We assume you're capable of handling a suitcase." But to him, my calm, brief responses meant I didn't care. He asked for my manager. When my manager came out and explained the same thing in the same calm tone, the man got even more frustrated. "Why is everyone here so cold?" We weren't cold. We were being professionally polite. But that gap, that tiny difference in what good service looks like, it turned a simple check-in into a 15-minute ordeal. If you notice these cultural gaps the way I do, you'll want to stay close. This channel doesn't skim the surface. It decodes the invisible rules shaping every cross-cultural encounter. Subscribe, and you'll start seeing what most people completely miss. Last summer in Kyoto, I watched an American woman in her 30s ask a shop owner about a ceramic tea set. The owner gave a small bow and said, "Very difficult to ship overseas." The woman laughed and said, "Oh, come on. I'm sure you can figure it out. You're the expert here." She kept smiling, kept pushing. The shop owner kept bowing, kept repeating the same phrase. She thought she was being encouraging and friendly. He thought she was ignoring his polite refusal. She left confused. He looked exhausted. Then there was the time in Amsterdam when an American exchange student, maybe 19 years old, told his Dutch host family that dinner was pretty good. The mother's face went blank. In the Netherlands, pretty good sounds lukewarm, almost insulting. He meant it as solid praise. She heard it as polite disappointment. Nobody said anything, but the rest of the evening felt stiff and weird. And just last month in Buenos Aires, my cousin who drives for a rideshare app picked up an American businessman. The guy spent the whole ride complaining about how long his meetings took. "Everyone just talks and talks. Nobody gets to the point. It's so inefficient." My cousin nodded politely, but inside he was thinking, "That's not inefficiency. That's relationship building. That's how business works here. You don't just transact. You connect first." But explaining that to someone who's already decided you're wasting his time, nearly impossible. These weren't bad people. They weren't trying to be rude. They just kept reading politeness through an American lens. And when the signals didn't match, everything got tangled. But that was just the beginning of understanding how deep this confusion really goes. I'm a tour guide in Reykjavik, and last September I had a group of 8 Americans, mostly retirees in their mid-60s. We were visiting a traditional turf house museum. I gave them the historical background, explained how Icelanders lived in these grass-roofed structures for centuries. Then I stopped talking. In Iceland, we pause. We let information settle. We give people space to observe and think. After maybe 30 seconds, one woman raised her hand. "Are you okay? Did you forget what you were going to say?" The others started looking concerned too. Another man said, "Should we move on?" They thought my silence meant something was wrong. I smiled and explained that silence is normal here, that we don't need to fill every moment with words. You could see the confusion on their faces. One woman whispered to her husband, "That's so weird." For the rest of the tour, every time I paused, someone would jump in with a question or a comment. Not because they had something important to say, because the quiet made them uncomfortable. They were trying to be helpful, to keep things moving. But in doing that, they talked over the very atmosphere I was trying to create. The peaceful, contemplative experience we value in Iceland got replaced with constant chatter. The thing is, in America, Silence in a professional setting often signals awkwardness or confusion. It means someone's lost their train of thought. But here, it signals respect and thoughtfulness. This is the kind of insight most people only stumble into after years abroad. I track it full-time, so you don't have to. Subscribe, and you'll never mistake politeness for coldness again. It means we're giving you room to process. Same silence, completely opposite meaning. I worked at a pharmacy in Stockholm for 3 years, and American customers always stood out. Not because of how they looked, but because of how they talked. There was this guy, maybe 45, wearing a university hoodie. He needed cold medicine. I asked him about his symptoms, suggested 2 options, and then waited for his decision. He looked at me for a second, then said, "So which one do you think is better?" I told him they're both effective, it depends on his preference. He laughed like I'd made a joke. "Come on, you're the expert here. Give me the insider info." He leaned on the counter, smiled, made eye contact like we were buddies. In Sweden, that's not how we interact with service workers. We're polite, but we keep distance. We don't perform friendliness. I gave him the same neutral information again. His smile faded a little. "Okay, but seriously, which one do most people buy?" He thought I was being coy, playing hard to get with information. I thought he was being pushy, trying to force me into a recommendation I wasn't comfortable making. He eventually picked one, but as he left, he muttered, "Everyone here is so standoffish." And I thought, I gave you complete information and respected your ability to choose. How is that standoffish? But to him, my professionalism read as coldness because I didn't perform warmth the way American service workers do. My friend works at a museum in Prague, and she told me about an American family that visited last spring. Mom, dad, 2 teenage kids. They walked through the medieval art section, and every few minutes, the dad would make a comment. "Wow, look at that one. That's incredible." Or, "Can you believe how old this is?" He was talking to his family, but in a voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. In Czech culture, museums are quiet spaces. You whisper if you must talk. The docent working that section, an older woman who'd been there for 20 years, finally approached them. She didn't say they were being rude. She just said, very quietly, "Other guests are viewing the collection." The dad looked genuinely surprised. "We're not being loud. We're just appreciating the art." He wasn't wrong from his perspective. In many American museums, animated discussion is seen as engagement. It means you're interested, you're learning. But in Prague, that same volume means you're prioritizing your experience over everyone else's piece. The family did quiet down, but the dad kept shaking his head like the rule was ridiculous. "We paid to get in. We should be able to talk." My sister-in-law is from Mexico City, and she told me about hosting an American couple through a homestay program. They were in their late 20s, really nice people. First morning, they came down for breakfast around 8 a.m. She'd made chilaquiles, fresh coffee, cut fruit, traditional breakfast. She served them, asked if they needed anything, then stepped back. The wife looked uncomfortable. After a few minutes, she said, "Aren't you going to eat with us?" My sister-in-law explained she'd already eaten earlier. The wife pressed, "But don't you want to sit and chat? Get to know us?" In her mind, a host who didn't sit and talk was either shy or unfriendly. In my sister-in-law's mind, hovering over guests while they ate was intrusive. She ended up sitting with them, but it felt forced on both sides. They wanted casual, egalitarian breakfast conversation. She wanted to provide excellent hospitality by giving them space and privacy. The Americans interpreted her discretion as distance. She interpreted their invitation as them not understanding boundaries. Nobody was wrong. The signals just didn't translate. I drive a taxi in Singapore, and you learn to read passengers fast. Americans always want to chat. Not all of them, but most. They ask where you're from, how long you've been driving, what you think about the city. They're being friendly. In America, that casual conversation with service workers is normal, even appreciated. But in Singapore, we're more formal with strangers. Polite, yes. Helpful, absolutely. But not personal. There was this American woman, probably early 30s, heading to the financial district for a job interview. She asked me about the best neighborhoods, then about my family, then about local politics, all in 10 minutes. I answered her questions, but briefly. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was being appropriate. She seemed to pick up on it because she suddenly went quiet, looked out the window. When we arrived, she said, "Thanks for the ride," in this flat voice, and gave exact change. No tip, which is fine because we don't really tip here. But I could tell she thought I'd been cold to her. What she didn't understand is that in Singapore, professional distance is a form of respect. We don't assume familiarity. We let relationships develop slowly, if they develop at all. Her friendliness wasn't bad. It just pushed against invisible boundaries she didn't know existed. I'm a server at a cafe in Berlin, and American tourists always smile at me when they order. Big, bright smiles. Sometimes they'll say, "Good morning, how are you today?" in this super enthusiastic voice. They're trying to be polite. In America, that's what polite looks like. You smile, you ask how someone's day is going, you create this warm little interaction. In Germany, that reads as fake. We don't smile at strangers unless we have a reason to. A genuine reason. When I see that big American smile, my instinct is distrust. What do they want? Why are they performing happiness? I know intellectually they're just being American, but it still feels off. There was this woman, maybe 50 years old, with a Texas Forever baseball cap. She ordered a cappuccino and smiled at me like we were old friends. "Isn't it just a beautiful day?" she said. It was drizzling. Gray sky. Cold. I looked at her, nodded, and wrote down her order. Her smile faltered a little. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Everything was fine. I was being normally polite. But to her, my neutral face meant something was wrong. She tried again. "I love your cafe, so cozy." I thanked her and went to make her coffee. When I brought it back, she was still trying to catch my eye, still trying to create that warm connection Americans expect. I set down the cup, asked if she needed anything else. She said no, but she looked disappointed. She sat there for an hour, and I could see her watching other tables, watching how Germans interact. Less smiling, fewer pleasantries, but still polite. I wonder if she figured it out, or if she left thinking Berlin service was cold. My cousin works at a hotel in Marrakech, Morocco, and he told me about an American couple that stayed there last winter. They were in their early 40s, first time in Morocco. Every interaction, they smiled and made strong eye contact. In American culture, that shows openness and trustworthiness. You look someone in the eye, you smile, you're a good person. But in Morocco, especially between men and women who don't know each other, prolonged eye contact is too intimate. The wife kept smiling directly at male staff members, holding eye contact while she asked questions. She was trying to be friendly and respectful, but some of the staff found it uncomfortable. They'd look away, answer briefly, create distance, she noticed. She told her husband, "Everyone here seems uncomfortable around me. Am I doing something wrong?" He suggested maybe it was a cultural thing, but she couldn't figure out what. My cousin eventually explained it to them, and she was mortified. "I was trying to be polite," she said. She was. She just didn't know that politeness looks different here. For the rest of their stay, she overcorrected. Barely made eye contact at all, almost seemed nervous. My cousin felt bad because now she was uncomfortable, which wasn't the point either. It's this impossible balance when you don't know the rules. I work at a grocery store in Christchurch, New Zealand, and we get a lot of American tourists, especially during our summer. There was this young guy, maybe 23, backpacker type. He came through my checkout line with a basket of food. As I scanned his items, he asked me how my day was going. I said, "Yeah, not bad." Standard Kiwi response. He smiled wider. "Just not bad? Come on, it's gorgeous outside." He was trying to boost my mood, I guess, being encouraging. In America, That kind of upbeat energy is seen as positive, as spreading good vibes. Here, it feels like you're being told your genuine response isn't good enough. I kept scanning his items. He kept trying. You must see so many interesting people working here. Any crazy stories? I told him it's usually pretty quiet. He laughed like I was joking. Oh, come on, there's gotta be something. He wanted entertainment. He wanted me to perform friendliness and share personal anecdotes with a stranger. I gave him his total. He paid, still smiling, still trying to create this connection. As he left, he said, "Hope your day gets better." It was a kind thing to say, but my day was fine. I'd said it was not bad, which in New Zealand means it's actually pretty decent. His American optimism made him hear my response as negative, so he tried to fix it. The assumption that I needed fixing was the weird part. My girlfriend is a flight attendant for a European airline, and she's told me dozens of stories about American passengers. One that stuck with me was about a businessman flying from Dubai to Budapest. He was probably in his mid-50s, first-class ticket, expensive suit. Every time she walked by, he'd catch her eye and smile. Not in a flirty way, just in that American friendly way. She'd smile back briefly and keep moving. In European service culture, you're polite, but you don't linger. You're efficient. After the meal service, he called her over. "I just wanted to say, you're doing a great job. Really appreciate your service." He said it earnestly, made eye contact, seemed genuine. She thanked him and moved on. But he looked a little deflated, like he'd expected more of a reaction. Later, he asked her about good restaurants in Budapest. She gave him 2 recommendations, brief and helpful. He said, "You really know your stuff. How long have you been flying?" She told him 5 years and excused herself to help another passenger. After landing, he left her a handwritten note with his used headphones. It said, "Thank you for your service. I hope I didn't bother you too much." She felt terrible. He thought he'd been annoying her by being friendly. She thought she'd been perfectly professional. The mismatch in what professional and polite looks like created this totally unnecessary awkwardness. I teach English at a language school in Osaka, and most of my adult students are Japanese professionals. Last year, an American joined our school for 3 months while his company had him in Japan. Nice guy, maybe 30 years old, worked in tech. First day of class, he walked in smiling at everyone, waving, saying hello loudly. The Japanese students gave small bows and quiet greetings. He kept up the energy, trying to be welcoming. During introductions, he said, "Don't be shy, everyone. We're all friends here." He meant it as encouragement. But in Japan, that immediate assumption of friendship feels presumptuous. You build relationships slowly, carefully. You earn closeness over time. The other students stayed polite but reserved. He interpreted this as them being nervous or unfriendly, so he tried even harder. Lots of jokes, lots of big reactions to everything. By the end of the first week, I could see the Japanese students were exhausted by his energy. They weren't annoyed exactly, just overwhelmed. He asked me privately if they didn't like him. I tried to explain that they were being polite in a Japanese way, which is quieter and more formal. He said, "But don't they know I'm trying to be nice?" He was. That was the whole problem. His version of nice was their version of too much. I work at a university admissions office in Rotterdam, and we get applications from American students every semester. Last spring, an American guy, maybe 19 years old, came in to ask about his application status. I told him we were still processing applications, and he'd hear back within 2 weeks. He leaned on the counter. "Okay, but what are my actual chances? Be honest. In the Netherlands, we're direct, sure. But we're not direct about things we don't know yet." I told him I couldn't predict outcomes before the review committee met. He pressed harder. "Come on, you must have some idea. Am I competitive?" I explained again that I don't make those decisions and couldn't comment. He got frustrated. In America, people just tell you straight up. They don't dance around stuff. He thought my unwillingness to speculate was me being evasive or overly bureaucratic. I thought his demanding a prediction was inappropriate pressure, He left annoyed, and I felt annoyed too. The irony is, Dutch culture is famously direct. But there's a difference between being direct about facts and being direct about things that aren't determined yet. He mistook professional boundaries for dishonesty. My brother-in-law works at a car rental place near Auckland Airport in New Zealand, and he had an American customer last summer who wanted to dispute a charge. The guy was maybe 35, wearing a business polo shirt. He'd returned the car with less fuel than required, so there was a refueling fee. He said very firmly, "That's not right. I filled it up before I came here." My brother-in-law checked the fuel gauge records and explained the tank was at 3/4 when returned. The contract required full. The American said, "So you're calling me a liar?" His tone shifted to confrontational. Nobody had called him anything. My brother-in-law was just explaining the policy. But in American culture, especially in customer service disputes, there's this assumption that the customer's word should be trusted first. Questioning it feels like a personal attack. In New Zealand, we just deal with facts. The gauge says 3/4. The fee applies. It's not personal. The guy demanded a manager. The manager said the same thing. The American paid the fee, but left a scathing review online about being accused of lying and treated like a criminal. All anyone did was enforce the contract terms. But to him, not automatically believing his account felt like rudeness and distrust. I'm a yoga instructor in Bali, and I teach classes that are mostly tourists. Americans make up maybe 30% of my students. There was this woman, probably in her late 20s, who came to class 3 days in a row. After the third class, she came up to me with feedback. "I really love your classes," she started, which was nice. Then she said, "But I think you could improve the flow between poses and maybe add more breathing cues. And the music was a little too loud today." She said it all with a smile, like she was being helpful. In America, unsolicited feedback is often framed as constructive, as trying to help someone improve. In Balinese culture, giving direct criticism like that, especially to someone older or in a teaching role, is disrespectful. You don't do it unless asked, and you definitely don't do it as a visitor. I thanked her politely and didn't change anything. She seemed confused that I didn't engage with her suggestions. She probably thought I was defensive or not open to feedback. What she didn't realize is that offering unasked for advice implies you know better than the person you're advising. In her mind, she was being helpful and open. In mine, she was overstepping. Neither of us was trying to be rude, but the interaction still felt off to both of us. My friend manages a small hotel in Krakow, Poland, and last autumn she had an American couple in their 50s who kept asking for things that weren't part of the service. Extra towels every day, room cleaned at a specific time, special breakfast requests. Each time, she explained what was included and what wasn't. The wife said, "In the hotels we stay at in America, they always say yes. They find a way to make it work." My friend explained that this was a smaller property with limited staff. The husband said, "That sounds like an excuse. Good customer service means flexibility." They weren't being mean, exactly. But they were applying American service expectations to a Polish context. In Poland, service is polite and competent, but it works within clear boundaries. We don't have that "the customer is always right" mentality. We have, "Here's what we offer. Here's what we don't." It's honest and straightforward. The couple left a review saying the hotel was inflexible and staff wasn't willing to go the extra mile. My friend was frustrated because she had been polite and clear. She'd done her job well by Polish standards, but by American standards, where service often means endless accommodation, she'd failed. I work at a tech startup in Bangalore, India, and we hired an American consultant last year for a 3-month project. He was in his early 40s, experienced guy. Second week there, we had a team meeting about project delays. Our team lead explained the challenges very carefully, with context about dependencies and resource constraints. The American interrupted. Look, bottom line, we're behind schedule. What's the fix? Everyone in the room went quiet. In India, especially in professional settings, you don't cut people off. You let them finish. You show respect by listening fully. His interruption, meant to be efficient and solution-focused, read as disrespectful and impatient. Our team lead continued, but the energy in the room changed. After the meeting, someone asked me if the consultant was angry about something. He wasn't angry. He was just being American-style direct. But that directness, without the softening layer of patient listening we use here, felt aggressive. He never understood why the team seemed distant with him. He thought they were being too slow and indirect. They thought he was rude and dismissive. The work got done, but the relationship never felt right, all because of different ideas about what respectful communication looks like. I work at a small bookstore in Wellington, New Zealand, and last December, 3 days before Christmas, an American woman came in looking for a specific cookbook. She was maybe 65, had that teacher energy. I checked our system and told her we didn't have it in stock but could order it. It would arrive in about 5 days. She smiled and said, "Oh, that won't work. I need it for Christmas." I apologized and suggested she try the larger bookstore downtown. She kept standing there, smiling, like she was waiting for me to offer another solution. Finally, she said, "So there's nothing else you can do?" I said no, not unless she wanted a different cookbook we had in stock. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her processing something. Then she said, "You know what? You're right. There's nothing you can do." She said it without sarcasm, like she'd just realized something. In America, I'd probably keep pushing. I'd expect you to call other stores or offer to rush ship it or something. She laughed a little. "That's exhausting, isn't it?" "For both of us." I nodded. She ended up buying a different cookbook, one about Maori cooking. As I wrapped it, she said, "I think I've been mistaking efficiency for rudeness this whole trip. Everyone here has been perfectly nice. I just kept expecting them to perform niceness the way we do at home." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me about other moments during her trip where she'd felt brushed off or dismissed, and how she was starting to realize maybe she'd been reading things wrong. She wasn't defensive about it or upset, just thoughtful. "It's hard," she said, "because at home, if someone talked to me the way people talk here, I'd think they were having a bad day or didn't like me. But here, it's just normal. It doesn't mean anything negative. It's just different." She picked up her bag and smiled, a smaller smile this time. "I'm going to stop trying so hard. Maybe that's the secret." After she left, I thought about all the American tourists I'd helped over the years, the ones who seemed hurt when I didn't chit-chat, the ones who thought I was mad because I didn't smile constantly, the ones who interpreted my direct, brief answers as coldness. None of them were trying to be difficult. They were just reading a language they thought they understood but didn't. Politeness isn't universal. Warmth isn't universal. Even respect looks different depending on where you're standing. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the goal isn't to make Americans less friendly or make everyone else more effusive. Maybe it's just about recognizing that when someone doesn't respond the way you expect, it might not be about you at all. The stories keep coming. Every week, someone new misreads the signals. Every week, someone leaves feeling confused or hurt or frustrated. And every week, I break down new stories like this, each one revealing a hidden rule most travelers never see. Subscribing doesn't help me. It helps you catch those signals before they turn into misunderstandings. Because once you start noticing them, you can't unsee them. And every week, the locals shake their heads and think, why don't they just adapt? But adaptation requires knowing what you're supposed to adapt to. And that knowledge doesn't come automatically just because you crossed a border. I think about that woman with the cookbook sometimes, the way she laughed when she figured it out, the way she stopped trying to force warmth and just let the interaction be what it was. That's probably the closest anyone gets to bridging the gap, not by changing who you are, but by accepting that who you are might not translate. And that's not anyone's fault. It's just the way it is.